Imagine you're a woman in ancient Greece, confined to a sun-baked courtyard, the air thick with dust and the cloying scent of olive oil, your fingers raw from weaving wool until they blister and bleed. Outside, your husband sips wine with his philosopher buddies, debating democracy in the agora like it's a X-Spaces chat, while you're stuck indoors, your world a claustrophobic maze of clay walls and endless chores. Welcome to 5th century BCE Athens, folks, where life for women was less goddess Athena glow up, and more perpetual house arrest with a side of soul-crushing misogyny. This wasn't some romantic epic with lyres and laurels. It was a brutal grind, where your voice was silenced, your worth chained to popping out suns, and stepping outside unveiled could spark a scandal worse than a viral TikTok fail caught in 4K. Forget Netflix's toga dramas. Real women like you were property, their lives dictated by men who thought freedom was a boys-only club. Ever wonder why a society that birthed philosophy, theater, and marble temples treated half its people like glorified furniture, locked away to spin thread and pray for invisibility? Spoiler: it's as infuriating as a Zoom call with no mute button, and twice as exhausting. Tonight, we'll slip through the torch-lit alleys of Athens with Lysandra, a weaver dodging the chains of custom, her quiet rebellion a spark in a world that tried to snuff her out. Drop a comment if you'd survive a day at her loom, and let's dive into a history that's equal parts brutal, absurd, and oddly soothing. As the cicadas' hum weaves through the warm night air, close your eyes. Feel the weight of a clay loom weight in your palm, the rough weave of a peplos against your skin, and drift into a world where women's lives were a silent battle, their strength a secret carved in the shadows of marble gods. The flicker of an oil lamp casts shadows across a cramped Athenian courtyard, where Lysandra, a weaver in her 30s, sits hunched over her loom. The clack of clay waits a rhythm as relentless as the sun baking the clay walls around her. Her fingers, raw from spinning wool, trace the coarse threads, each one a silent prayer for a life beyond these confines. Outside, men's laughter drifts from the agora, their voices weaving tales of democracy and philosophy, while Lysandra's world is bound by silence, duty, and the weight of a society that sees her as little more than a shadow in a peplos. Welcome to 5th century BCE Greece, where women faced a brutal reality harsher than a Reddit thread gone viral, their lives a tightrope walk over a chasm of custom and control. Why did a culture that sculpted goddesses and wrote epics treat its women like property, their worth measured in dowries and sons? Drop a comment if you dare Lysandra's loom, and let's unravel a history that's as infuriating as it is immersive. As the scent of olive oil and dust lingers, settle in for a tale that'll shock your soul and soothe your mind. This wasn't the Greece of marble temples and heroic myths. For women, it was a grind of submission, where freedom was a man's privilege, and a misstep could mean ruin. From Athens' cloistered homes to Sparta's disciplined ranks, women like Lysandra navigated a world rigged against them, their resilience a quiet rebellion against a system that demanded invisibility. Our journey unfolds in 4 parts. First, we'll wander through daily life, where chores and confinement defined a woman's role, and even a glance outside could spark scandal, per ancient texts like Xenophon's Economicus. Next, we'll delve into marriage and motherhood, where girls were bartered like amphorae, their value tied to heirs, as seen in Athenian dowry records. Then, we'll explore the rare paths to power, priestesses, hetairai, Spartan women, where some defied the odds, though not without cost, grounded in inscriptions from Delphi. Finally, we'll reflect on the legacy, contrasting ancient chains with modern freedoms, and ask how Lysandra's grit still echoes today. Expect shocking customs, like child brides as young as 12, and moments of defiance that'll make you grateful for our world, where a woman's voice isn't a crime. This tale, rooted in archaeological finds like loom weights unearthed in Athens and literary sources like Aristophanes' biting plays, isn't just history. It's a mirror to human struggle and strength. Picture the dust of a courtyard, the clink of a shuttle, the murmur of women's voices stifled but unbroken. Lysandra's story, though fictional, breathes life into the past. her rebellion a spark in a world that tried to dim her. Share what time you're drifting off, and let our night owl community weave its spell. As the hum of cicadas fills the warm night air, close your eyes, feel the rough weave of a peplos, and step into a world where women's lives were brutal, but their hearts burned fierce, a defiance that lulls you into dreams of a past both cruel and captivating. The morning sun spills into Lysandra's courtyard, a cramped square of packed earth hemmed by clay walls, where the air hums with cicadas and the sharp tang of olive oil from a nearby jar. She sits at her loom, her fingers threading wool through clay weights, their clack a metronome to a life bound by these walls. At 30, Lysandra is a weaver, wife, and mother in 5th century BCE Athens. Her world the gymnasium, the women's quarters, a domestic cage where sunlight is her only guest. Beyond the courtyard, the agora buzzes with men's voices, their debates on democracy a distant hum, while Lysandra's voice is stilled, her presence a shadow to be hidden from prying eyes. In ancient Greece, a woman's life was a brutal ballet of confinement, where stepping beyond the threshold could spark scandal harsher than a Reddit roast gone viral. Drop a comment if you'd endure Lysandra's courtyard, and let's slip into a world where walls were both prison and shield. As the loom's rhythm lulls you, settle in for a tale that's as chilling as the clay's cool touch. In 5th century BCE Athens, women were tethered to the home, their lives dictated by a society that prized male freedom and female invisibility. Xenophon's Economicus, a treatise on household management, paints the ideal wife as a manager of the gymnasium, confined to domestic duties while her husband roams the polis. Lysandra's courtyard, a feature of Athenian homes unearthed in Olynthus, is her domain, a small, sunlit space with a loom, a hearth, and a few jars, but no door to the street. Women's movement was restricted, their visibility a threat to family honor. As Thucydides notes, the greatest glory for a woman is to be least talked about. To step outside unveiled was to risk shame, a scandal that could ruin her husband's name, per Athenian legal texts. Picture Lysandra's morning. She rises before dawn, her peplos scratching her skin, to light the hearth, its smoke curling through a hole in the roof. Her daughter, Chloe, 5 and curious, tugs her hem, asking for stories of the gods. But Lysandra hushes her. Work waits. She grinds barley for bread, her arms aching. The millstones rasp a reminder of her endless tasks. The courtyard, her world, is both refuge and trap, its walls high to block neighbors' eyes. Archaeological finds, like house layouts in Athens, show Gynecia isolated from public spaces, with narrow passages to keep women unseen. Lysandra's husband, Nikos, a merchant, leaves at dawn, his world the agora, while hers shrinks to these clay confines, her only company Chloe and the loom's relentless clack. The confinement wasn't just physical, it was social, a web of rules that choked agency. Women were barred from public life, no voting, no juries, no symposia, their roles confined to wife and mother, as Plato's law suggests. Lysandra, married at 15, knows her worth lies in obedience and heirs. Her son, Damon, now 10, already roaming freer than she ever will. To leave the courtyard, even for water, requires a veil and a purpose, lest she draw whispers of impropriety. Vase paintings from the period depict women veiled, their eyes downcast, a visual code of submission. Lysandra's rare trips to the well are choreographed, head covered, steps quick, eyes low, yet she feels the weight of neighbors' gazes, their tongues sharper than a loom shuttle. Let's linger by the courtyard's edge, where Lysandra pauses, her hands dusted with flour, to hear the agora's hum. Chloe plays with a clay doll, her laughter a spark in the quiet, but Lysandra's mind drifts to the world beyond. Temples, markets, voices she'll never join. A neighbor, Phaedra, calls from her own courtyard, her voice low. Keep your veil tight, Lysandra, gossip's cheap. The warning, a pattern interrupt, jolts her, a reminder of the eyes that watch even here. Aristophanes' Lysistrata, though comedic, hints at this scrutiny, with women mocked for any hint of agency. Phaedra's own husband, a potter, grumbles of her boldness for bartering herbs, a risk Lysandra avoids. But temptation stirs, her own herb patch a secret she guards. The gymnasium's walls were a paradox, protection and prison. They shielded women from dishonor, but also from life, their isolation a brutal tax on spirit. Historical records, like Athenian dowry contracts, show women as property, their confinement ensuring their purity for marriage. Lysandra's mother taught her this, her hands weaving the same loom, her eyes dull with acceptance. Yet Lysandra chafes, her rebellion small, whispered stories to Chloe, a glance at the sky, each a crack in the clay. Archaeological finds, like loom weights inscribed with women's names, suggest quiet defiance, their work a mark of identity in a world that erased them. The social web was relentless. Neighbors both allies and spies. Phaedra, kind but cautious, shares bread but warns of gossip, her own life a mirror to Lysandra's. The well, a rare meeting place, buzzes with women's voices, but each word is weighed. Praise for a husband, prayer for sons, silence on dreams. A misstep, like unveiling or lingering, could spark rumors, as seen in Demosthenes' speeches, where women's reputations were fragile as clay. Lysandra feels this, her veil a shield, her silence a strategy, but the courtyard's walls can't block the whispers that seep through. As dusk falls, Lysandra weaves by lamplight, the oil's acrid scent mingling with wool's musk. Chloe sleeps, her doll clutched tight, while Damon returns, his chatter of the agora a world Lysandra can't touch. Nikos, home late, grunts approval at the bread, his eyes on his ledger, not her. The courtyard, a cocoon of routine, feels tighter tonight, Phaedra's warning echoing. They're talking, Lysandra, your herbs, your eyes. The gossip, a spark in dry grass, could flare into danger, but that's a shadow we'll chase in the next breath. Drop a comment if you'd keep weaving in Lysandra's place, and let's drift toward the next turn in this brutal tapestry. The looms clack wrapping your thoughts as the night hums with cicadas. The midday sun beats down on Lysandra's courtyard, its clay walls radiating heat, the air thick with the musk of wool and the faint smoke of a smoldering hearth. She sits at her loom, her fingers weaving threads through clay weights. Their clack a relentless drumbeat that measures her days in 5th century BCE Athens. Her back aches, her eyes sting from squinting at the coarse wool, but the work never pauses. There's bread to bake, barley to grind, and Chloe, her 5-year-old daughter, to mind, her small hands tugging at Lysandra's peplos for attention. In ancient Greece, a woman's life was a grind of domestic labor, a marathon of chores that chained her to the gymnasium. Her worth spun into every thread, every loaf, every quieted cry. This wasn't just work, it was survival, a brutal dance of duty sharper than a Twitter pile-on for missing a deadline. Drop a comment if you'd survive Lysandra's loom, and let's slip into a world where toil was a woman's only voice. As the hearth's warmth wraps you, settle in for a tale that's as exhausting as it is soothing. In 5th century BCE Athens, women's lives were defined by domestic labor, a cycle of tasks that bound them to the home as surely as walls. Xenophon's Economicus describes the ideal wife as a manager of household duties, weaving, cooking, childcare, her role to maintain order while her husband engaged in the polis. Lysandra's day begins before dawn, her hands grinding barley with a stone quern, the rasp a counterpoint to the cicadas outside. Archaeological finds, like querns and loom weights unearthed in Olynthus, reveal the physical toll, worn bones, strained muscles. While Aristophanes' Lysistrata mocks women's endless toil, its humor a bitter nod to their reality. Lysandra's loom, a wooden frame strung with clay weights, is her anchor, producing cloth for her family's tunics, a task that consumes hours, as Hesiod's Works and Days suggests, urging women to work the work of Athena. Picture Lysandra at her hearth, stirring a pot of lentil pottage, the steam mingling with wool's musk, her daughter Chloe darting between her legs, clutching a clay doll. The kitchen, a corner of the courtyard with a clay oven and jars of barley, is her battlefield, each meal a victory over scarcity. Cooking was no art. Barley bread, lentils, and occasional olives were staples, per Athenian household inventories. Lysandra kneads dough, her arms burning, the oven's heat singeing her brow. Chloe's chatter, full of questions about goddesses, is a spark of joy, but childcare is another chore. Keeping her safe, teaching her to spin, ensuring she doesn't wander beyond the courtyard's walls. Vase paintings from the period depict women at looms or hearths, their faces serene but their hands never still, a visual lie that masks their exhaustion. The grind was relentless, a cycle unbroken by rest. Weaving, the heart of Lysandra's labor, was a skill passed from mother to daughter, as seen in Homeric descriptions of Penelope's loom. Lysandra spins wool from dawn to dusk, her fingers blistered, producing cloth for Nikos' tunics and Chloe's tiny peplos. The loom weights, heavy and smooth, clack rhythmically, a sound that haunts her dreams, as archaeological finds of inscribed weights suggest women's pride in their craft. Cooking follows, grinding grain, baking flatbread, boiling lentils. Each task a race against time before Nikos returns, expecting a meal. Childcare weaves through it all. Chloe's needs a constant pull. Her son Damon, 10, already freer, learning trade with Nikos, a freedom Lysandra can't touch, per Plato's laws on gender roles. Let's pause by the hearth, where Lysandra wipes sweat from her brow, the pottage bubbling, Chloe's doll abandoned in the dirt. The courtyard, a cage of clay, hums with her labor. The looms clack, the querns rasp, the fires crackle. A pattern interrupt shocks the scene. Chloe, curious, reaches for the hot oil lamp, its flame licking her hand before Lysandra yanks her back, her scream a jolt that pierces the courtyard's rhythm. The burn is minor, but Lysandra's heart races. Such mistakes could mean disaster, a sick child a burden she can't bear. Aristophanes plays hint at such domestic perils. Women juggling fire and children with no reprieve. Lysandra soothes Chloe, her own hands trembling, her mind on the herb patch she tends in secret, a risk she hides from Nikos. The herb patch, tucked in a corner of the courtyard, is Lysandra's defiance, a whisper of agency in a life of toil. She grows mint and fennel, their scent a rare comfort, used for salves or tea, as seen in Theophrastus' botanical texts. Bartering them could ease her labor, extra grain, a new loom weight, but Nikos forbids it, fearing gossip, per Demosthenes' speeches on women's honor. Lysandra's labor is her prison, but also her power, each thread and loaf a testament to her endurance. The grind, though brutal, breeds resilience, a quiet strength that carries her through, as archaeological finds of women's tools, spindles, querns, reveal, there were a mark of lives spent in motion. The village watches, its eyes sharp as loom shuttles. Phaedra, the neighbor, brings bread, her own labor a mirror to Lysandra's, but warns, don't barter those herbs, men talk. The warning, a nod to the social web that binds women, echoes Thucydides' call for silence. Lysandra nods, her herb patch a secret she guards, but temptation grows. Bartering could mean rest, a moment to breathe. The risk, though, is real. A woman trading beyond her husband's gaze draws whispers, as vase paintings show, depicting women shunned for boldness. Lysandra's labor, her only currency, is a chain she longs to break, a spark of rebellion that could light a fire. As dusk settles, the courtyard dims, the looms clack slowing as Lysandra lights an oil lamp, its flicker casting shadows of her and Chloe. Nikos returns, his voice gruff, expecting dinner, his eyes blind to her exhaustion. The herb patch, hidden in the twilight, calls to her, a chance to barter, to defy, to claim a sliver of freedom. But Phaedra's warning lingers, and the village's whispers grow louder, a gossip that could unravel her life. But that's a shadow we'll chase in the next breath. Drop a comment if you'd barter those herbs, and let's drift toward the next turn in this brutal tapestry. The hearth's glow wrapping your thoughts as the cicadas hum into the night. The twilight cloaks Lysandra's courtyard in a soft veil of shadow, the clay walls cooling as the cicadas' hum fades into the stillness of an Athenian night. She kneels by her secret herb patch, her fingers brushing mint leaves, their sharp scent a fleeting escape from the weight of her day's labor. Weaving, cooking, minding Chloe. The loom, silent now, looms like a judge, its clay weights glinting under the flicker of an oil lamp. Beyond the walls, the village stirs, a murmur of voices from the well where women gather, their words sharp as loom shuttles, weaving a web of scrutiny that binds Lysandra tighter than any chain. In 5th century BCE Greece, a woman's life wasn't just confined by walls, it was policed by eyes, every act weighed against an unforgiving code of honor, where a single misstep could spark shame harsher than a viral X-thread gone rogue. Drop a comment if you'd face that gossip like Lysandra, and let's slip into a world where silence was survival. As the lamp's glow warms your thoughts, settle in for a tale that's as oppressive as the village's watchful gaze. In ancient Athens, women were bound by a social code that prized honor, family honor, male honor, above all, their behavior a mirror of their husband's status. Thucydides' maxim, the greatest glory for a woman is to be least talked about, wasn't just advice, it was law, etched in custom and enforced by scrutiny. Lysandra, a weaver and wife at 30, knows this code by heart, her every move, veiling, silence, obedience, a performance to shield Nikos' name, as Solon's laws on women's conduct suggest. Athenian legal texts, like those in Demosthenes' speeches, penalized women for immodesty, from unveiled glances to public speech, their reputations fragile as the clay amphory in her courtyard. Vase paintings depict women veiled, their eyes downcast, a visual mantra of submission. while Aristophanes' Lysistrata mocks their boldness, a satire that stings with truth. Lysandra's life, confined to the Gymnasium, is a tightrope walk, each step shadowed by judgment. Picture Lysandra at the well, a rare venture beyond her courtyard, her peplos heavy with dust, her veil tight across her face. The village women, their buckets clanking, chatter of husbands, sons, and gods. But their eyes flick to Lysandra, noting her limp from years at the loom, her hands stained with mint. Phaedra, her neighbor, nods but warns. They're talking, Lysandra. Your herbs, your eyes too bold. The gossip, a spark from her secret patch, smolders, fed by envy and fear. Women were both victims and enforcers of this scrutiny, their survival tied to conformity, as Xenophon's Economicus implies, urging wives to uphold household honor. Lysandra's herb bartering, a whisper of agency, is a crack in this facade, a risk that draws whispers sharper than a shuttle's edge, per inscriptions on women's graves steely praising their silent virtue. The scrutiny wasn't just external. Family policed her too. Nikos, her husband, a merchant with a ledger's gaze, expects obedience, his honor tied to her invisibility, as Plato's laws on male authority suggest. At dinner, he grunts over her barley bread, his eyes blind to her exhaustion, but sharp for flaws, a loose veil, a lingering glance. Chloe, 5, mimics this, chiding Lysandra for humming a tune. Papa says it's bold. Even Damon, her 10-year-old son, parrots Nikos, his agora tales full of men's glory, not her toil. The family, a microcosm of Athens, mirrors its judgment, each word a weight on Lysandra's shoulders. Archaeological finds, like loom weights inscribed with women's names, hint at their pride, but also their burden, every thread a testament to a life under watch. Let's linger at the well, where the women's voices hush as Lysandra approaches, their buckets still, their eyes a silent jury. A pattern interrupt shocks the scene. Phaedra, bold from bartering her own figs, is shamed by an elder, Calliope, her voice slicing through the dusk. You trade like a hetaira, shaming your man. The crowd gasps, Phaedra's face crumpling, her figs spilling into the dust. A public humiliation that echoes Demosthenes' tales of women ostracized for immodesty. Lysandra freezes, her mint bundle hidden under her peplos, her heart pounding. Phaedra's fate could be hers. The women scatter, their whispers a storm, Calliope's judgment a warning. Step beyond honor and pay. Lysandra's bartering, a secret she's kept from Nikos, feels like a noose tightening, her defiance a spark that could burn her life to ash. The social web was a trap, its thread spun by fear of shame. Neighbors like Phaedra were allies but spies, their kindness laced with caution, as seen in Euripides' Medea, where women's solidarity frays under scrutiny. The village, a chorus of eyes, judged Lysandra's veil, her limp, her herb patch, each a potential scandal. Gossip wasn't idle, it was power, a weapon to enforce conformity, as Athenian court records show, with women sued for dishonor. Lysandra's mint, bartered once for grain, drew Calliope's glare, her whisper to another, she's too cunning, like a market hag. The rumor, small but sharp, spreads, a threat Lysandra feels in her bones. Her courtyard no shield against the village's tongue. The scrutiny's weight was psychological, a slow crush of spirit. Lysandra's defiance, her herbs, her hummed tunes, is a flicker, but each risks her honor, her family's name, as Solon's laws on guardianship imply. She dreams of the agora, its stalls and voices, but wakes to the loom, her rebellion stifled by fear of Nikos' wrath, the village's scorn. Psychological studies of ancient societies, like those by Sarah Pomeroy, suggest women internalized this scrutiny, their silence a survival tactic. Lysandra's mother, dead a decade, taught her this, her own life a mirror of submission, as grave steely inscriptions praise obedient wives. Yet, Lysandra's herb patch, her secret trade, is a crack in this mold, a defiance she clings to, even as gossip grows. The village's judgment peaks as Calliope spreads her tale. Lysandra's herbs, she trades like a man. The whisper reaches Nikos, his ledger paused, his eyes narrowing at dinner. He questions her, his voice low but sharp. What's this I hear of mint? The accusation, a pattern interrupt, chills Lysandra, her heart a drumbeat of fear. She's crossed a line, her bartering a betrayal of honor. Historical records, like Athenian dowry disputes, show husbands punishing wives for such boldness, from fines to divorce. Lysandra's denial, it's nothing, is a lie, her herb patch a secret now exposed, It sent a traitor in the courtyard. Nikos' gaze, cold as marble, promises consequences. But that's a shadow we'll chase in the next breath. Share if you defy that scrutiny like Lysandra, and let our night owl community weave its spell. Drop a thought on honor's cost, and let's drift toward the next turn in this brutal tapestry. The lamps flicker, wrapping your thoughts as the village hums with whispers. The courtyard is cloaked in dusk's heavy shadow, the air thick with the scent of cooling clay and the faint mint of Lysandra's hidden herb patch. She stands frozen, her peplos damp with sweat, as Nikos looms before her, his merchant's ledger tucked under his arm, his eyes sharp as a blade. "Mint, Lysandra?" he growls, his voice low but laced with fury, the word a spark from the gossip that's reached him, her secret bartering, a defiance of his honor. The loom, silent in the corner, seems to judge her, its clay weights glinting under the oil lamp's flicker. In 5th century BCE Athens, marriage wasn't a partnership. It was a chain, forged in dowries and duty, binding women like Lysandra to men like Nikos in a contract colder than a corporate merger gone south. Her herb bartering, a whisper of freedom, now threatens to unravel the fragile thread of their union. Drop a comment if you'd face Nikos' wrath like Lysandra, and let's slip into a world where love was a myth and marriage a man's game. As the lamp's glow softens, settle in for a tale that's as brutal as the chains of betrothal. In ancient Athens, marriage was a transaction, not a romance, a deal struck between men to secure wealth, status, and sons. Solon's laws, etched in the 6th century BCE, made women legal wards, first to fathers, then husbands, their consent a formality ignored, as Athenian dowry contracts reveal. Lysandra, betrothed at 15 to Nikos, a merchant twice her age, was a pawn in her father's game, her dowry, a plot of land, a few amphorae, her price, per Demosthenes' speeches on family law. The betrothal, a handshake between men, bound her to a stranger, her childhood swapped for a gymnasium's walls, as Xenophon's Economicus describes, urging wives to serve their husband's honor. Now, at 30, Lysandra feels the chain's weight, Nikos' anger a reminder of her place. Property, not partner, her bartering a breach of his control. Picture the confrontation. Nikos paces the courtyard, his sandals scuffing the earth, his voice a storm breaking over Lysandra's silence. "You trade like a hetaira," he snaps, invoking the courtesans who roam free but shamed, a slur that stings like a slap. Chloe, 5, peeks from the doorway, her clay doll clutched tight, her eyes wide with fear, while Damon, 10, lingers behind Nikos, his father's echo. Lysandra's heart pounds, her mint bundle hidden under a jar, her denial. It was nothing. A lie that crumbles under Nikos' glare. Athenian legal texts, like those in Isaeus' inheritance cases, show husbands punishing wives for dishonor, from fines to divorce, a fate that could leave Lysandra homeless, her children lost. The gossip, sparked by Calliope's sharp tongue at the well, has reached him, a betrayal of honor that threatens his name, Thucydides' call for women's silence. The betrophal's chains were forged before Lysandra's birth, her life a script written by men. At 15, she stood veiled in her father's courtyard, her dowry counted, land, oil, wool, while Nikos nodded, his eyes on the ledger, not her face. The ceremony, a brief exchange of vows under torchlight, was no celebration, as vase paintings depict, showing brides veiled, their hands passive. Her mother, warned by her own marriage, whispered, "Obey and live." The dowry, a legal tether, ensured her obedience, as Solon's laws tied it to her husband's control, her freedom traded for security. Now, Nikos' anger rekindles that moment, his honor, his power, challenged by her herbs, a defiance he can't forgive, per Aristophanes' Lysistrata, where women's agency is mocked as chaos. Let's linger in the courtyard, where the lamp's flicker casts Nikos' shadow over Lysandra, her breath shallow, her hands clenched. Chloe's whimper breaks the silence, a pattern interrupt that softens Nikos' glare, but only for a moment. He turns back, his voice cold. "You shame me, Lysandra." The accusation, a public wound in Athens' honor-driven world, echoes court cases where husbands sued for immodesty, as seen in Demosthenes' orations. Lysandra's bartering, a trade of mint for grain to ease her grind, was a spark of agency, but to Nikos, it's a betrayal, a crack in his control. Phaedra's shaming at the well, Calliope's gossip, these are warnings Lysandra ignored, her defiance now a noose tightening around her marriage. The chains of betrothal were social, too, a web of scrutiny that policed women's roles. Neighbors like Calliope, enforcers of honor, watch Lysandra's every move, their whispers a currency sharper than coin, as Euripides' Medea shows, with women judged by men's standards. The village, a chorus of eyes, sees her herb patch as boldness, her silence as cunning, per Athenian inscriptions praising obedient wives. Nikos' family, too, weighs in. His mother, a widow in the household, chides Lysandra's restlessness, her own life a model of submission. The pressure, a psychological crush, stifles Lysandra's spirit, as Sarah Pomeroy's studies suggest, with women internalizing shame to survive. Her mint, a secret rebellion, is now a public crime. It sent a traitor in the courtyard. The confrontation escalates, a second pattern interrupt that shocks the scene. Nikos slams his ledger shut, his voice a thunderclap. "I could cast you out, Lysandra. Divorce is cheap." The threat, a legal weapon in Athens, chills her. Divorce meant losing Chloe and Damon, her dowry gone, her life a beggar's, as Isias' cases detail. Lysandra's plea, "I meant no harm," falls flat, her eyes on Chloe, her heart a knot of fear. Nikos' honor, tied to her obedience, is a fragile thing, as Plato's laws on male authority imply, and her bartering, though small, is a public wound. The village, alive with Calliope's gossip, waits for his verdict, their eyes sharper than ever, as vase paintings show, depicting women shunned for dishonor. The betrothal's toll is a slow bleed, a life of duty over desire. Lysandra's marriage, a decade old, is a contract, not a bond. Nikos' bed, his table, his children her duty, as Xenophon urges. Her love for Chloe and Damon is fierce, but tinged with fear. She's their mother, but Nikos' property, per Solon's guardianship laws. Her herb bartering, a bid for rest, now risks everything. Her defiance a spark that could burn her home to ash. Archaeological finds, like graves steely praising dutiful wives, mock her rebellion, their epitaphs a reminder of her place. Yet, Lysandra's heart, stubborn as clay, holds fast, her mint a whisper of freedom she can't let go. As night deepens, the courtyard falls silent, Nikos' threat hanging like smoke. He storms out, his ledger under his arm, leaving Lysandra trembling, Chloe clinging to her peplos. The village, its whispers a storm, waits for her fall. Calliope's gossip, Phaedra's silence, the reeve's watchful eye, a web that tightens. Nikos' talk of divorce, a spark in dry grass, could ignite a crisis, but its shape, punishment or mercy, is a shadow we'll chase in the next breath. Drop a comment if you defy that chain like Lysandra, and let's drift toward the next turn in this brutal tapestry. The lamps flicker, wrapping your thoughts as the night hums with menace. The courtyard lies hushed under a dawn sky, the clay walls still cool as Lysandra cradles Chloe, her 5-year-old daughter, whose brow burns with a sudden fever, her small body trembling against Lysandra's peplos. The oil lamp's flicker casts shadows across the loom. Its clay waits silent, a rare pause in the relentless grind of weaving that defines Lysandra's days in 5th century BCE Athens. Nikos' threat of divorce, sparked by her secret herb bartering, hangs like a storm cloud, his honor wounded by her defiance. But Chloe's illness pushes it aside. A mother's duty trumps all, even fear. In ancient Greece, motherhood wasn't just a role. It was a burden, a high-stakes gamble where women like Lysandra were valued for sons, risked death in childbirth, and bore the weight of a society that saw them as vessels, not voices. This wasn't parenting. It was a survival test harsher than a Reddit mom-shaming thread gone nuclear. Drop a comment if you'd face Chloe's fever like Lysandra, and let's slip into a world where love was fierce but fraught. As the hearth's embers glow, settle in for a tale that's as heart-wrenching as it is soothing. In 5th century BCE Athens, motherhood was a woman's primary duty, her worth measured in heirs, preferably male, as Solon's laws on inheritance tied family wealth to sons. Xenophon's Economicus urges wives to bear children to secure the household, but the Hippocratic corpus reveals the cost. Childbirth was deadly, with infections and hemorrhages claiming many, as graves steely for young mothers attest. Lysandra, mother to Chloe and 10-year-old Damon, knows this risk. She nearly died birthing Chloe, her screams echoing in the gymnasium, no midwife to aid her, per Serenus gynecology texts. Now, at 30, she faces pressure to produce another son. Nikos grumbles at dinner. A man needs heirs, a reminder of her failure, despite Chloe's life, as Athenian dowry contracts valued women by their fertility. Chloe's fever, a spark in the night, tests Lysandra's strength, her herb patch her only weapon against a society blind to her love. Picture Lysandra at Chloe's side, her hands pressing a mint-soaked cloth to her daughter's brow, the herb's sharp scent cutting through the courtyard's musk of wool and smoke. Chloe whimpers, her clay doll forgotten, her eyes glassy with fever. The hearth, stoked high, crackles, its heat a faint shield against the chill of fear. Lysandra's son, Damon, sleeps in the corner, his agora tales silenced, while Nikos, at the agora trading oil, is absent, his divorce threat a ghost in her mind. Motherhood demands she act, mix salves, sing lullabies, pray to Artemis, but offers no rest, as vase paintings show women cradling infants, their faces etched with strain. The Hippocratic corpus prescribes mint for fevers, but Lysandra's patch, a secret now exposed, draws Calliope's gossip, a risk she can't shake, for Demosthenes' speeches on women's honor. The burden was relentless, a cycle of care and expectation. Lysandra rises before dawn to weave, cook, and mind Chloe, her labor a backdrop to motherhood's demands. Teaching Chloe to spin, keeping her veiled, preparing her for betrothal, as Lysistrata mocks, with women raising daughters to conform. Damon, freer at 10, learns trade with Nikos, his world expanding while Chloe shrinks, per Plato's laws on gender roles. Society prized sons, Damon's birth earned Nikos' nod, Chloe's a grunt. Yet Lysandra's love is equal, fierce, a defiance of Athens' bias, as grave steely inscriptions praise mothers for noble sons, but rarely daughters. Chloe's fever, a common threat in the Hippocratic texts, could mean death, a loss that would brand Lysandra barren, fueling Nikos' divorce talk, as Isias cases show husbands casting out unproductive wives. Let's pause by the hearth, where Lysandra's hands tremble, the mint cloth cooling Chloe's brow, her lullaby a soft hum against the night's menace. A pattern interrupt shocks the scene. Chloe's fever spikes, her body convulsing, a gasp that stops Lysandra's heart. She grabs fennel from her patch, boiling it into a tea, her hands shaking. Her herbs, once a secret rebellion, now a desperate bid to save her child. Serenus warns of child mortality, with fevers felling many, and Lysandra knows no physician will come for a girl, as medical texts prioritized male patients. The village, alive with Calliope's gossip, Lysandra's herbs are cursed, offers no help, its eyes sharp, as Euripides' Medea shows women judged for their children's fate. Lysandra's fear, a mother's raw edge, battles her duty, her love a fire no gossip can douse. The burden's toll was physical and emotional, a weight that bent Lysandra's spirit. Childbirth scarred her, Chloe's birth left her weak for months, her body a map of pain, as Hippocratic texts describe postpartum risks. Raising Chloe, she teaches obedience, veiling, silence, a mirror of her own life, yet aches to share her herb secrets, a defiance stifled by Nikos' glare. The pressure for sons gnaws, Nikos' family, his mother's chiding, another girl? Echoes Athens' bias, per Athenian inheritance laws favoring males. Lysandra's love for Chloe, her spark of joy, is a rebellion, but society sees her as a vessel, her failure to birth more sons a mark against her, as grave steely rarely honor mothers of daughters. Her herbs, a salve for Chloe, risk her marriage, Nikos thread a sword over her head. The village's scrutiny deepens the burden, its whispers a lash. Calliope at the well spreads tales. Lysandra's herbs, she's no mother, trading like a man. The gossip, a public wound, reaches Phaedra, who warns Lysandra, hide your patch or lose your girl. The threat, a nod to Athenian court stripping mothers of children in divorce, chills her, as Isias cases detail. Lysandra's motherhood, her fiercest role, is a battle. Save Chloe, defy Nikos, silence the village, all while her body and heart strain, as Pomeroy studies suggest women bore trauma to protect their young. Her herb patch, a lifeline, is now a curse. It sent a traitor in the courtyard. As dawn breaks, Chloe's fever ebbs, her breath steadying, a flicker of hope in Lysandra's exhausted eyes. She slumps by the hearth, the fennel tea cooling, her hands stained with mint, her heart raw. Nikos' return looms, his divorce threat a storm, but Chloe's illness, a crisis that demanded her herbs, has changed her. She'll use them again, openly, a defiance that could cost everything. The village, its gossip a roar, watches. Calliope's whispers promising trouble, but Chloe's fate hangs in the balance, a shadow we'll chase in the next breath. Drop a comment if you'd use those herbs like Lysandra, and let's drift toward the next turn in this brutal tapestry. The hearth's embers wrapping your thoughts as the cicadas hum into the morning. The courtyard lies shrouded in the hush of an Athenian dawn, the clay walls cool to the touch as Lysandra kneels by her hearth, the embers casting a faint glow across Chloe's sleeping form, her fever finally broken. The scent of mint lingers on Lysandra's hands, a reminder of her desperate use of herbs to save her daughter, a defiance that sparked Calliope's betrayal. Her whispers of cursed herbs, now a storm in the village. Nikos' shadow looms, his divorce threat a blade held over Lysandra's heart, his honor wounded by her bartering, a sin against the rigid code of 5th century BCE Athens. Her role as wife and mother, a duty heavier than the loom weights piled in the corner, demands submission, silence, and sacrifice. But the cost, her spirit, her freedom, cuts deeper than a viral X-pylon. In ancient Greece, duty wasn't just a role. It was a price, paid in isolation and erased dreams. Drop a comment if you'd bear that duty like Lysandra, and let's slip into a world where love was a chain. As the heart's warmth fades, settle in for a tale that's as heart-wrenching as it is soothing. In 5th century BCE Athens, a woman's duty as wife and mother was a sacred yoke, binding her to family and polis, her worth measured by her husband's honor and her son's survival. Euripides' Medea paints this starkly, with women's sacrifices, body, voice, self, cast as betrayal when they defied men's rules. Lysandra, at 30, feels this weight. Her marriage to Nikos, sealed at 15, demands obedience, while motherhood to Chloe and Damon requires endless care, as Solon's laws on guardianship tied women to male control. Athenian marriage contracts, preserved in papyri, show wives as property, their duties, bearing heirs, managing the gynecium, non-negotiable. Lysandra's herb bartering, a bid for agency, is a crime against this order, as Demosthenes' speeches on immodesty warn, with husbands like Nikos wielding divorce as punishment. Chloe's fever, though eased, has exposed her herbs. Calliope's gossip a lash that threatens her family, per inscriptions praising dutiful wives. Picture Lysandra in the courtyard, her peplos clinging with sweat as she grinds barley, the querns rasp a counterpoint to Chloe's soft breaths. Nikos, at the agora, sends word through Damon, no more herbs, or you're out. The threat, a cold echo of his divorce talk, chills her, as Isias' cases detail wives cast out, losing children and dowry. Chloe, now 6, clings to her clay doll, unaware her mother's defiance, using mint to save her, has sparked a village fire. Calliope's betrayal, whispered at the well, Lysandra's herbs curse Chloe, spreads, a public wound that brands her a bad mother, as Euripides' Hippolytus shows women judged for their children's fate. Lysandra's duty, to protect Chloe and obey Nikos, is a paradox. Her love a defiance that risks everything, per Athenian legal texts punishing disobedient wives. The emotional toll is a slow bleed, eroding Lysandra's spirit. Motherhood, her fiercest role, is a battle, nursing Chloe through fever, teaching her to veil, preparing her for betrothal, as Economicus urges wives to raise daughters for submission. Nikos' mother, a widow in their home, chides her, "Your herbs shame us," her voice a mirror of Athens' bias, Pagraves steely praising only obedient mothers. Lysandra's love for Chloe, a spark in her weary heart, clashes with duty. Nikos demands sons, his grumbles a reminder of her failure, as the Hippocratic corpus notes high maternal mortality left women barren in men's eyes. Her marriage, a contract of service, isolates her, as Sarah Pomeroy's studies suggest women internalize shame to survive, their dreams buried under duty's weight. Let's pause by the well, where Lysandra draws water, her veil tight, her eyes downcast under the village's gaze. The women, their buckets clanking, fall silent, Calliope's voice cutting through. "Her herbs, they're why Chloe sickened." The accusation, a pattern interrupt, shocks the crowd, a public shaming that echoes Demosthenes' tales of women ostracized for boldness. Lysandra freezes, her bucket trembling, her heart a drumbeat of fear. Calliope's betrayal, fueled by envy of her herbs, could cost her Chloe, as Athenian courts stripped mothers in divorce, per Isias. Phaedra, once her ally, turns away, her own shaming a warning, as Lysistrata mocks women's fragile bonds under scrutiny. The village, a jury of whispers, condemns Lysandra, her duty a noose tightening with each word. The social toll is a fracture, isolating Lysandra further. The village, once a web of shared toil, is a trap, its eyes sharper than loom shuttles. Calliope, her gossip a weapon, paints Lysandra as a danger, her herbs a curse, per vase paintings depicting women shunned for defying norms. Nikos' control tightens, he bans her from the well, his voice cold. "You'll stay inside, or lose all." The threat, a legal right in Athens, isolates her in the gynecium, her world shrinking to clay walls, as Solon's laws gave husbands absolute power. Lysandra's defiance, her herbs, her love for Chloe, is a spark, but duty's price is steep, her spirit bending under shame, as Pomeroy studies note women's trauma in patriarchal systems. The confrontation escalates, a second pattern interrupt that shakes the courtyard. Nikos, enraged, smashes an amphora, its shards scattering like Lysandra's hopes. "You've shamed me," he roars, his voice a thunderclap, as Damon watches, his eyes torn between father and mother. The outburst, a public wound, mirrors court cases where husbands punished disobedient wives, per Demosthenes. Lysandra's plea, "I saved Chloe," falls flat. Her herb's a crime against duty, as Medea shows women punished for agency. The village, alive with Calliope's whispers, waits for her fall, their judgment a weight heavier than the loom. Lysandra's heart, though battered, holds fast, her love for Chloe a defiance she can't surrender. As night falls, Lysandra sits by Chloe, her fever gone, her doll clutched tight. The courtyard, a cage of clay, hums with the lamp's flicker. Nikos thread a storm on the horizon. Calliope's betrayal has lit a fire. Lysandra, desperate, plans to seek Artemis priestess at Broron, a sanctuary for women, a risk that could save or doom her. The village, its whispers a roar, closes in, but her plea to the goddess is a spark of hope. But that's a shadow we'll chase in the next breath. Share if you'd face Calliope like Lysandra, and let our night owl community weave its spell. Drop a thought on sacrifice's cost, and let's drift toward the next turn in this brutal tapestry. The lamps glow, wrapping your thoughts as the cicadas hum into the dark. The dawn air is cool and heavy with the scent of dew-soaked earth as Lysandra slips through Athens' shadowed alleys, her peplos clinging to her skin, her heart pounding with the weight of Nikos' divorce threat and Calliope's betrayal over her herb bartering. The village, its whispers sharp as loom shuttles, drives her to a desperate act. Seeking sanctuary at the Temple of Artemis in Broron, a day's journey from her courtyard's confines. Chloe, her 6-year-old daughter, clings to her hand, her clay doll tucked under her arm, while Damon, 10, trails behind, his eyes wary. In 5th century BCE Greece, the priestess's role was a rare crack in the clay walls of oppression, offering women like Lysandra a glimpse of power through divine service. But it came with chains of its own, rituals, vows, and scrutiny as harsh as a viral X thread gone wrong. Drop a comment if you'd seek Artemis protection like Lysandra, and let's wander into a world where divinity was a woman's only crown. As the temple's torchlight flickers, settle in for a tale that's as sacred as it is brutal. In ancient Athens, priestesses were among the few women who could wield influence, their authority borrowed from gods like Artemis, goddess of childbirth and the wild. Delphic inscriptions list priestesses managing temple rites, from offerings to festivals, their roles prestigious but tightly bound. As Xenophon's Economicus notes, women's lives were for home or altar. Lysandra, at 30, knows Broron Sanctuary, a haven for women escaping domestic strife, per archaeological finds of votive figurines, offers hope, but not freedom. The Hippocratic Corpus mentions Broron as a refuge for mothers, where girls like Chloe served as bears in Artemis rites. A ritual Lysandra prays will shield her daughter from Nikos' wrath. Yet, priestly power was a veil, not a crown. Priestesses, often elite, faced scrutiny, their purity policed, as Solon's laws on sacred roles demanded chastity or marriage, per inscriptions from Broron's shrine. Picture Lysandra's journey. She treks through olive groves, the path dusty, her veil tight to avoid men's gazes, Chloe's small hand gripping hers. The temple, a low stone structure ringed by cypresses, looms ahead, its torches casting a warm glow against the dawn. Women, veiled and silent, gather at the altar, their offerings, clay figurines, woven cloths, a plea for Artemis' mercy. Lysandra, her herb-stained hands trembling, kneels, her prayer a whisper, "Protect us, goddess." The priestess, Eudoxia, a woman with eyes sharp as flint, watches, her white peplos gleaming, her authority a flicker of power in a man's world. Vase paintings depict such women, their hands raised in ritual, but their faces stern, bound by duty as much as Lysandra's loom, per Euripides' Iphigenia in Taurus. The priestess's role was a paradox. Power within chains. Eudoxia, chosen from a noble family, manages Broron's rites, her voice heard in sacred spaces where Lysandra's is silenced, as Delphic records show priestesses advising cities. Yet, her power is borrowed, her life a performance of purity, her every act watched, as Athenian legal texts note fines for impure priestesses. Lysandra, seeking sanctuary, offers mint from her patch, a humble gift, but Eudoxia's gaze narrows, her voice a pattern interrupt that shocks. "Your herbs, they draw eyes, like a witch's brew." The warning, echoing Calliope's gossip, chills Lysandra. Her defiance, meant to save Chloe, is a mark even here, as Aristophanes' Thesmophoria mocks women's rituals as suspect. The temple, a haven, feels like a trap, its sanctity a mirror of Athens' scrutiny. Let's linger at the altar, where Lysandra kneels, Chloe's doll at her feet, the air thick with incense and cypress. Eudoxia, her hands tracing a clay bear figurine, speaks of the Arctia, a rite where girls dance for Artemis, a path Chloe could take, per Broron's archaeological records. Lysandra's hope flares, she could join the temple, serve as a minor priestess, escape Nikos' divorce, but the cost is steep. Vows, isolation, leaving Damon. The priestess's power, a beacon, is a cage. As Plutarch's Moralia notes, priestesses' lives were not their own. Lysandra's heart, torn between Chloe's safety and her son's future, aches. Her herb's a defiance that risks her sanctuary, as Demosthenes' speeches warn of women's boldness punished. The village's shadow follows her. Its gossip a relentless hunter. Calliope whispers, Lysandra's herbs are cursed. Reach Broron, carried by a merchant's wife, her voice sharp at the temple gate. The scrutiny, a weight heavier than loom weights, threatens Lysandra's plea, as Athenian inscriptions penalize women for impiety. Eudoxia, bound by her role, hesitates, her eyes flicking to Chloe, her voice soft but firm. Sanctuary demands purity, prove it. The challenge, a ritual to dance as a bear with Chloe, is a risk. Failure could mark them as outcasts, as Broron's votive records hint at rejected petitioners. Lysandra's defiance, her herbs, her flight, is a spark, but the temple's gaze is as sharp as Nikos, per Euripides' tales of sacred duty. The priestess's power, though real, was fragile, a veil easily torn. Eudoxia, revered but watched, risks her status by aiding Lysandra, as Delphic inscriptions show priestesses fined for favoritism. Lysandra's mint, a gift meant to plead, is a danger. Herb use, linked to healers, draws suspicion, as Theophrastus' botanical texts note. The temple, a sanctuary, is a stage, its rituals a performance under Athens' eyes, per Thesmophoria Zeus's satire of women's rights. Lysandra's hope, a candle in the wind, flickers. Sanctuary could save her, but failure could doom her, as graves steely mourn women who strayed. Chloe's small hand, clutching hers, is a reminder of why she dares, her love a defiance stronger than fear. As dusk falls, the temple's torches flare, the Arctia's drums echoing through Broron's groves. Lysandra, her peplos dust-streaked, prepares for the ritual, her heart a drumbeat of hope and dread. Eudoxia's warning, prove your purity, rings, the village's gossip a shadow even here. The dance, a test of devotion, could shield Chloe, but failure could mark them as cursed, a risk that looms like Nikos' divorce threat, but that's a shadow we'll chase in the next breath. Drop a comment if you'd dance for Artemis like Lysandra, and let's drift toward the next turn in this brutal tapestry, the temple's incense wrapping your thoughts as the night hums with sacred chants. The midday sun bathes Broron's temple in a golden haze, its stone altar fragrant with the smoke of burning myrtle, where Lysandra lingers, her peplos dust streak from her flight to seek Artemis' sanctuary. Chloe, her 6-year-old daughter, plays nearby, her clay doll bobbing in a stream, while Damon, 10, kicks stones, his eyes wary of the temple's veiled women. The priestess Eudoxia's warning, prove your purity, hangs heavy, the Arctia ritual looming, a dance that could shield Lysandra from Nikos' divorce threat but risks branding her an outcast if she fails. Amid the hum of sacred chants, a new figure emerges. Clio, a hetaira from Athens, her crimson peplos shimmering, her laughter sharp as a lyre's note. In 5th century BCE Greece, hetairai were a rare breed, educated courtesans who traded wit and charm for influence. Their power a gamble riskier than a viral ex-post gone wrong. Drop a comment if you'd charm like Clio, and let's slip into a world where brains were a woman's blade. As the temple's incense swirls, settle in for a tale that's as dazzling as it is dangerous. In ancient Athens, hetairai were a paradox. Women who wielded influence in a man's world, but at a cost. Shame, precarity, and scrutiny harsher than a Reddit thread. Unlike wives like Lysandra, confined to the gymnasium, hetairai mingled at symposia, their intellect and charm captivating elite men, as Plutarch's Life of Pericles describes Aspasia, mistress to Athens' leader. Hetairai, often foreigners or freed slaves, were educated in rhetoric, music, and philosophy, per Athenaeus Deipnosophisti, their skills a currency in a city that silenced most women. Yet, their power was a tightrope. Shunned as immoral, they risked arrest or exile, as Athenian legal texts note fines for public women. Lysandra, at 30, meets Cleo at Broron, her elegance a stark contrast to the temple's austerity, her advice a beacon in Lysandra's storm. Nikos' wrath, Calliope's gossip, and the looming Arctia. Picture the encounter. Lysandra kneels by the stream, rinsing Chloe's doll, when Cleo approaches, her gold anklets chiming, her eyes bright with mischief. "You're the herb woman," she says, her voice low, running from a man's leash. Lysandra flinches, her mint-stained hands hidden, but Cleo's laugh, warm yet sharp, disarms her. "I know you're kind, trapped but not broken." Cleo, a hetaira who dines with poets, offers advice. "Charm Nikos, outwit the village. Use your mind, not your loom." The words, a pattern interrupt, jolt Lysandra, hetairai, free but shamed, live beyond Athens' walls, as vase paintings show, depicting women at symposia, wine cups in hand, their faces bold. Cleo's power, a glitter in her eyes, tempts Lysandra, her herb bartering a faint echo of such defiance, per Aristophanes' Lysistrata, where women's wit is mocked but potent. The hetaira's power was a gambit, a dance on a knife's edge. Cleo, trained in rhetoric, sways men like Pericles, her words shaping policy, as Plutarch claims Aspasia influenced Athens' laws. Yet, her freedom is fragile. Hetairai, untied to husbands, face poverty if their patrons tired, per Athenaeus' tales of fallen courtesans. Lysandra, bound to Nikos, envies Cleo's wit, her laughter a weapon Lysandra's silence can't match, as Economicus urges wives to serve, not speak. Cleo's advice, out-talk the gossip, charm the fool, is a lifeline, but risky. Lysandra's herbs, her defiance, already draw Calliope's venom, as Demosthenes' speeches warn of women punished for boldness. The temple, a haven, hums with judgment, Eudoxia's eyes sharp on Cleo's crimson, her presence a scandal, per Thesmophoria Zeus's satire of immoral women. Let's linger by the stream, where Chloe splashes, unaware of Cleo's gaze, her anklets glinting like forbidden stars. Lysandra, her heart torn, listens as Cleo recounts a symposium. Wine, poets, power. Her voice painting a world beyond the gymnasium. "You could be me," she whispers. "Leave the loom, live by your wits." The temptation, a spark in Lysandra's weary soul, clashes with her duty. Chloe, Damon, the Arctia's looming test. A second pattern interrupts shocks the scene. Eudoxia, spotting Cleo, snaps, "Leave, courtesan, your kind taints us." The outburst, a public shaming, echoes Athenian laws banning hetairai from sacred rites, per Solon's decrees. Cleo laughs, unfazed, but Lysandra shrinks, her herb bartering a faint shadow of Cleo's scandal, as vase paintings depict hetairai shunned by virtuous wives. The gambit's cost was steep, a life of glitter and grit. Hetairai, like Cleo, owned their homes, per archaeological finds of jewelry and graves, but faced exile or violence, as Athenaeus notes attacks on courtesans. Lysandra, her mint a small rebellion, sees Cleo's power, her voice, her freedom, but also her isolation, shunned by women like Eudoxia, per Plutarch's tales of Aspasia's trials. The village's gossip, Calliope's cursed herbs, follows Lysandra to Broron. Its whispers a lash that could doom her plea, as Delphic inscriptions penalize impure women at temples. Cleo's advice to charm Nikos, outwit the village, is a gamble. Lysandra's silence, her shield, could shatter under such boldness, as Lysistrata mocks women's schemes as chaos. The hetairais life, though dazzling, was a trap, its power a mirage. Cleo, her laughter a blade, navigates Athens' elite, but her patrons, poets, generals, own her time, per Athenaeus' accounts of contracts. Lysandra, her loom a chain, dreams of Cleo's wit, her herbs a faint echo of such agency, but fears the cost, shame, exile, losing Chloe. The temple, alive with chants, judges her. Eudoxia's warning a reminder, purity, not cunning. Lysandra's heart, torn between duty and defiance, aches. Cleo's path, a siren's call, could free her from Nikos, but at what price? Archaeological finds, like Hetairais' grave goods, hint at wealth but loneliness, their epitaph silent on family. Lysandra's love for Chloe, her anchor, pulls her back, her herbs a defiance she can't yet abandon. As dusk falls, the temple's torches dim, Cleo slipping away, her crimson peplos a fading spark. Lysandra, clutching Chloe, prepares for the Arctia, Eudoxia's ritual a test of her worth. Cleo's words, "Live by your wits," echo, a temptation to defy Nikos, charm the village, a gamble that could save or doom her. Calliope's gossip, a shadow from Athens, threatens her sanctuary, a storm that could break her plea, but that's a shadow we'll chase in the next breath. Drop a comment if you take Cleo's gamble, and let's drift toward the next turn in this brutal tapestry. The streams ripple, wrapping your thoughts as Broron's chants fade into the night. The twilight drapes Broron's temple in a soft veil, its stone altar aglow with a flicker of torches, where Lysandra sits, her peplos dust-worn, her heart heavy with the priestess Eudoxia's ritual demand and Cleo the Hetera's tempting words. Chloe, her 6-year-old daughter, sleeps against her, her clay doll tucked close, while Damon, 10, watches the temple's shadowed cypresses, his face taut with worry over Nikos' divorce threat and Calliope's venomous gossip. Amid the hum of sacred chants, a new voice cuts through, a traveler from Sparta, her bronze armlet glinting, her stride bold as she speaks of women who own land and train like warriors. In 5th century BCE Greece, Spartan women were an exception. Their autonomy a stark contrast to Lysandra's Athenian chains, a dream as daring as a viral X-post defying the algorithm. Drop a comment if you'd flee to Sparta like Lysandra dreams, and let's wander into a world where women walk taller. As the torchlight dances, settle in for a tale that's as bold as it is brutal. In ancient Greece, Spartan women stood apart, their lives a sharp counterpoint to Athens' Gymnasium-bound wives. Plutarch's Life of Lycurgus describes Sparta's system, where women owned land, trained physically, and spoke publicly, their roles vital to a warrior state. Unlike Lysandra, confined by Solon's laws and Nikos' control, Spartan women inherited property, up to 40% of land, per Aristotle's Politics, and managed estates, as graves steely honor their wealth. Xenophon's Constitution of the Lacedaemonians notes their physical training, running and wrestling to bear strong sons. A freedom Lysandra, at 30, can only imagine, her body worn by loom and childbirth. Yet, Sparta's autonomy was no utopia. Women's power served the state, their lives still tied to motherhood, as Herodotus' histories recount tales of Spartan mothers shaming weak sons. Lysandra, fleeing Calliope's gossip and Nikos' wrath, clings to the traveler's words, a spark of escape in Broron's sacred gloom. Picture the scene. Lysandra rests by the temple stream, rinsing Chloe's doll, when the Spartan traveler, Thera, approaches, her chiton short, her arms muscled from training. In Sparta, she says, her voice rough with pride, we don't hide behind veils, we own our fields, our voices. Lysandra, her herb-stained hands trembling, listens, her heart racing. Thera's tale of women racing under Sparta's hills, managing estates while men war, is a world beyond her courtyard's clay walls. Vase paintings from Laconia depict Spartan women unveiled, their strides bold, a contrast to Athenian wives, per Lysistrata's mockery of cloistered women. Thera's presence, a pattern interrupt, jolts Lysandra. Her herbs, her defiance, seem small beside Spartan freedom, yet mirror their boldness, as Plutarch notes Spartan women's sharp wit in public. Spartan women's power was real but bounded, a leash looser than Athens but still held by men. They owned land, per Aristotle, managing wealth while husbands campaigned, as Spartan inscriptions praise women like Gorgo, wife of Leonidas, for political counsel. Their training, running, javelin throwing, strengthened them, unlike Lysandra's loom-worn frame, as Xenophon describes Spartan girls racing at festivals. Yet, their autonomy served Sparta's militarism. Strong mothers bred strong warriors, per Life of Lycurgus. Women faced scrutiny, shame for weak sons, as Herodotus recounts a mother's scorn for a coward. Lysandra, dreaming of Sparta, sees freedom, land, voice, strength, but not its price. Duty to the state, not self, as graves steely laud Spartan mothers for sons, not dreams. Let's linger by the stream, where Chloe splashes, unaware of Thera's gaze, her bronze armlet catching torchlight. Lysandra, her heart torn, imagines Sparta, running free, owning fields, defying Nikos' divorce threat. Thera's tales, of women like Cynisca, Olympic chariot victor, per Pausanias' description of Greece, light a fire in her weary soul. A second pattern interrupts shocks the scene. Thera, bold, demands equal offerings at Artemis' altar, her voice ringing, Spartan women bow to no priestess. Eudoxia, outraged, snaps, respect the goddess. The clash, a scandal in Broron's sanctity, echoes Herodotus' tales of Spartan women defying norms, their boldness punished or praised. Lysandra, clutching Chloe, feels the spark. Thera's defiance mirrors her herbs, her flight, a gamble that could free her from Calliope's gossip and Nikos' chains. The Spartan exception was a mirage, its freedom a state-crafted illusion. Women like Thera spoke publicly, per Plutarch, but to uphold Sparta's code, not challenge it. Their land ownership, a power Lysandra craves, tied them to son's success, as politics notes high dowries pressured heiresses. Spartan women faced exile for dishonor, per Xenophon, their lives watched like Lysandra's by Calliope's eyes. Archaeological finds, like votives at Artemis Orthia, show Spartan women's devotion, their power rooted in ritual, not rebellion. Lysandra's herbs, her bartering, are a faint echo of Spartan boldness, but her Athenian chains, Nikos, the village, Eudoxia's ritual, bind tighter, as Demosthenes' speeches warn of women's immodesty punished. The dream of Sparta, though vivid, is fraught. Thera's tales paint freedom, unveiled walks, sharp words, but hide the cost. Loyalty to Sparta's war machine, not self, as Herodotus' stories of mothers sacrificing sons suggest. Lysandra, her love for Chloe and Damon fierce, fears leaving them. Sparta's women, per Plutarch, sent sons to war, a duty she can't fathom. Calliope's gossip, a shadow from Athens, reaches Broron, whispered by a merchant. Lysandra's cursed herbs. The scrutiny, a lash sharper than Spartan javelins, threatens her plea, as Athenian inscriptions penalize impure women at temples. Thera's defiance, a beacon, tempts Lysandra to flee, but the Arctia's ritual looms, a test she must pass to stay, per Broron's votive records. As night falls, Broron's torches flare, the Arctia's drums pulsing. Lysandra, her peplos heavy, prepares to dance, Chloe at her side, Eudoxia's eyes sharp. Thera's words, own your voice, echo, a dream of Sparta's hills, land, and strength. Lysandra, her herbs hidden, plans a secret flight to Sparta, a gamble to escape Nikos' allies tracking her, a risk that could save or doom her, but that's a shadow we'll chase in the next breath. Share if you defy like a Spartan woman, and let our night owl community weave its spell. Drop a thought on freedom's true cost, and let's drift toward the next turn in this brutal tapestry. The temples chants wrapping your thoughts as the stars burn above. The Athenian village lies hushed under a dawn sky, its cobblestone paths slick with dew. The agoras hum a faint echo in the absence of Lysandra, whose flight to Broron and whispered plan to escape to Sparta have left a wound as raw as the gallows square of a witch hunt. Calliope, the gossip whose venomous tales of Lysandra's cursed herbs fueled Nikos' divorce threat, draws water at the well, her bucket trembling, her eyes avoiding the empty courtyard where Lysandra's loom once clacked. Phaedra, her neighbor, kneels in her own yard, her bread-baking paused, her heart heavy with guilt for turning from Lysandra's plea. Nikos, his merchant's ledger untouched, paces the agora, his honor scarred by his wife's defiance, the village's whisper sharper than a Reddit thread gone feral. In 5th century BCE Greece, a woman's rebellion rippled like a stone in a still pond, fracturing trust and leaving scars no harvest could heal. Drop a comment if you'd carry Calliope's guilt, and let's slip into a world where defiance broke more than chains. As the well's creak hums, settle in for a tale that's as fractured as the village's heart. In ancient Athens, the aftermath of a woman's defiance, like Lysandra's herb bartering and flight, was a communal wound, splintering the fragile web of trust that bound neighbors. Athenian court records, like those in Demosthenes' speeches, show villages torn by scandals, with families shunned or exiled for dishonor. Lysandra's absence, her courtyards loom silent, is a void the village feels. Her herbs, once a quiet trade, now a curse in Calliope's tales, as Lysistrata mocks women's boldness as chaos. The agora, once alive with Nikos' oil trade, falters, his shame a stain on his wares, per economic inscriptions noting merchants' losses from family strife. Phaedra's silence, Calliope's gossip, and Nikos' rage deepen the fracture, as archaeological finds of abandoned households in Olympus hint at communities unraveling when trust broke, leaving fields fallow and hearths cold. Picture the village at midday, the well a ghost of its chatter, women's buckets clanking in silence. Calliope, her face pinched, draws water, her gossip. Lysandra's herbs curse Chloe, now a bitter weight, as neighbors avoid her, fearing her tongue, per Euripides' Medea, where betrayal isolates. Phaedra, baking bread, pauses, her hands trembling. She turned from Lysandra, fearing Calliope's lash, a choice that haunts her, as Solon's laws on honor made women enforcers of shame. Nikos, in the agora, snaps at a traitor, his ledger untouched, his son Damon, 10, trailing him, his chatter of ships silenced by his father's fury. The village, a web of shared toil, phrase, Lysandra's flight, her rumored Spartan dream, is a scandal that taints all, as Demosthenes' cases show families shun for a woman's immodesty. The fractures are social, a trust shattered like a clay amphora. Calliope, once a voice of judgment, is shunned, her well visit solitary, her gossip a poison that backfires, as Thesmophoria Zusi satirizes women's rivalries. Phaedra, her courtyard a mirror of Lysandra's, bakes alone, her bread uneaten by neighbors, her guilt a shadow, Pagraves steely praising dutiful wives, not traitors. Nikos' honor, tied to Lysandra's obedience, is a public wound, traitors whisper, his wife fled. Their deals cooling, as economic papyri note merchants' losses from shame. The village children, once playing agora games, mimic Lysandra's flight, their laughter sharp, a cultural scar etched young, as vase paintings show boys aping men's roles, not women's. The community, once knit by shared harvests, is a tangle of suspicion, each glance a potential accusation. A pattern interrupt shocks the village. Phaedra, driven by guilt, leaves a clay figurine, an offering for Artemis, at Lysandra's abandoned courtyard, a silent apology scratched into its base. Return. The act, a jolt in a village hardened by fear, is seen by Calliope, who weeps, her own guilt stirring, as Athenian court records note rare reconciliations after scandals. Yet, the Reeve, Nikos' ally, spots the figurine, his ledger open, adding Phaedra's name as disloyal, a risk that could cost her home, per Solon's laws penalizing immodest women. The village, its eyes sharp, wavers. Some soften, others sneer. But the fracture deepens, Lysandra's absence a wound no offering can heal, as Medea shows betrayal's lasting sting. The economic toll is a slow bleed. Nikos' trade, once thriving, stalls. Buyers shun a man whose wife fled, per inscriptions noting market slumps from dishonor. Fields lie fallow, farmers distracted by gossip, their grain untended, as Olynthus' abandoned homes suggest communities collapsed under scandal. Calliope's husband, a potter, sees his wares unsold, her gossip tainting his name, per economic papyri on trade losses. Phaedra's bread, once bartered, rots, her isolation a mirror of Lysandra's, as Economicus urges wives to sustain households, not break them. The village, its wealth tied to trust, starves, its market a husk, as archaeological finds of empty storerooms in Athens hint at communal decline when women's roles shifted. The psychological toll is a scar on the village's soul. Calliope's guilt isolates her, her cottage a prison, as Pomeroy's studies suggest women bore trauma for enforcing norms. Phaedra's remorse, a weight heavier than her quern, drives her to pray alone, her faith shaken, per Plutarch's Moralia on women's piety under strain. Nikos' rage, a mask for shame, alienates Damon, his son's loyalty torn, as Antigone shows family bonds breaking under honor's weight. The village, its heart fractured, fears Lysandra's Spartan dream, a woman free, unveiled, owning land, as a threat to Athens' order, per Aristotle's Politics warning of Spartan women's excess. The gossip, Calliope's spark, festers, each villager a cog in a machine that crushed one of their own. As dusk falls, the village stirs, Nikos' allies, merchants, the Reeve, plot to pursue Lysandra, their torches flaring in the agora, a hunt sparked by her Spartan rumor. Calliope, alone at the well, drops her bucket, her tears a silent plea, while Phaedra, her figurine a secret, watches from her courtyard, her hope fading. The pursuit, a storm brewing, could drag Lysandra back, or worse, a shadow we'll chase in the next breath. Drop a comment if you'd leave that figurine like Phaedra, and let's drift toward the next turn in this brutal tapestry, the wells creak wrapping your thoughts as the stars dim above. The Athenian village lies draped in the quiet of dusk, its cobblestone paths glinting faintly under a crescent moon, the agora's stalls shuttered, a silence that speaks of Lysandra's absence, her flight to Broron, her whispered dream of Sparta, a wound that festers in the community's heart. Calliope, her gossip a spark that lit the fire of Lysandra's exile, kneels by her hearth, her hands trembling as she molds clay, her once sharp tongue stilled by the village's scorn. Phaedra, her neighbor, weaves alone, her looms clack a hollow echo of Lysandra's, her guilt a shadow for failing to defend her friend. Nikos, his merchant's ledger gathering dust, avoids the agora, his honor tarnished by Lysandra's defiance, the village whispering of her Spartan madness. In 5th century BCE Greece, a woman's rebellion, like Lysandra's herb bartering in flight, rippled beyond her courtyard, reshaping gender roles and etching scars in cultural memory, a legacy sharper than a viral X-thread sting. Drop a comment if you'd speak out like Lysandra, and let's wander into a world where defiance echoed through time. As the moon's light softens, settle in for a tale that's as enduring as it is brutal. In ancient Greece, women's struggles, like Lysandra's, left lasting echoes, subtly shifting societal norms and seeding cultural memory with tales of resilience. Sophocles' Antigone captures this, with its heroine defying male authority, her rebellion a mirror to Lysandra's herb bartering and flight, a spark that challenged Athens' patriarchal web. Epigraphic evidence, like Graves' steely praising defiant women, suggests some communities honored such courage, though sparingly, as Demosthenes' speeches note women's boldness often led to exile. Lysandra's village, fractured by her absence, feels this shift. Calliope's isolation, Phaedra's guilt, Nikos' shame ripple outward, altering how women are seen, per Athenian court records of scandals reshaping family roles. The broader impact, seen in archaeological finds of abandoned households in Olynthus, shows villages weakened by women's defiance, their economies and trust faltering, as economic papyri note trade losses from social strife. Picture the village at twilight, its paths empty, the wells silent where Calliope once whispered of Lysandra's cursed herbs. Phaedra's sister, Myrrhine, a weaver with a voice bold as bronze, stands in the agora, her loom waits at her feet, her words a shock. Lysandra was no curse, she was us, trapped. The speech, a pattern interrupt, stuns the crowd. Merchants pause, Nikos flinches, the Reeves ledger trembles, a defiance echoing Antigone's stand against Creon. Myrrhine's act, defending Lysandra's flight, is rare, as Euripides' Bacchae shows women's rebellion punished, yet Graves' Stele from Athens honor some as brave, their names etched beside dutiful wives. The village, its heart fractured, wavers. Some cheer Myrrhine, others hiss, but her words plant a seed, a shift in how women's defiance is remembered. The societal impact was slow, a ripple not a wave. Women's rebellions, like Lysandra's herb bartering or Myrrhine's speech, nudged gender roles, as seen in later Athenian laws easing dowry restrictions, per Isaeus inheritance cases. Communities, weakened by scandals, saw women take small roles, managing households, trading quietly, as Economicus hints at wives' growing influence post-strife. In neighboring demes, women like Myrrhine inspired whispers of change, as epigraphic records from Eleusis note women leading minor rites, a nod to their resilience. Yet, the patriarchy held firm. Solon's laws still bound women to guardians, and Lysistrata mocks their agency as chaos, a cultural memory that both celebrated and feared women's defiance, per vase paintings of bold women shunned. Let's linger in the agora, where Myrrhine's voice fades. Her loom waits a symbol of Lysandra's lost craft. Calliope, shunned, watches from her cottage, her guilt a weight heavier than clay, as Medea shows betrayers isolated by their own words. Phaedra, weaving alone, hears Myrrhine's speech, her heart stirring. She too could speak, but fears the Reeves' gaze, per Demosthenes' tales of punished women. Nikos, his trade faltering, curses Lysandra's name, but Damon, his son, listens to Myrrhine, his eyes bright with questions. A shift in the next generation, as Plutarch's Moralia notes youth challenging norms. The village, its trust broken, feels Lysandra's echo, her herbs, her flight, a crack in the clay walls of patriarchy, per archaeological finds of women's votives at Eleusis, offerings for strength. The cultural memory of women's struggles was dual, scorn and subtle reverence. Ballads, like those in Hesiod style, sang of obedient wives, but whispers in demes praised women like Lysandra, their defiance a quiet legend, as Graves' Stele hint with rare epitaphs for bold mothers. The village's economy, hit by Nikos' shame and empty stalls, mirrors Olynthus' decline, per economic papyri noting trade slumps post-scandal. Women like Myrrhine, though few, carried Lysandra's spark, their small trades, herbs, cloth, a nod to her rebellion, as Bacchae shows women's rights defying male control. The patriarchy, though unyielding, bent slightly, as later laws allowed widows minor rights, per Athenian legal reforms, a legacy of defiance etched in stone. The psychological toll lingered, a scar on the village's soul. Calliope's isolation, Phaedra's guilt, Nikos' rage, each a wound from Lysandra's flight, as Pomeroy's studies suggest women bore trauma for defying or upholding norms. The village children, Damon among them, play less, their games mimicking agora debates, not looms, a cultural shift per vase paintings showing boys aping men. Myrrhine's speech, a spark, stirs hope but fear, her boldness, like Lysandra's, risks exile, as Demosthenes' cases warn. The community, fractured, clings to old roles but feels the echo, women's defiance, a whisper that could grow, per epigraphic records of women's names on minor altars. The Athenian village rests under a star-pricked sky, its cobblestone path silent, the agora's hum faded into the night's embrace. Lysandra's courtyard lies empty, its loom dismantled, the herb patch trampled, a ghost of her defiance, her bartering, her flight to Broron, her dream of Sparta's hills. Calliope, her gossip a spark that lit Lysandra's exile, sits by a cold hearth, her clay hands trembling with guilt, her voice stilled by the village's scorn. Phaedra, weaving alone, clutches a figurine left for Lysandra, her remorse a flicker in the oil lamp's glow, stirred by Marine's agora speech defending their lost friend. Nikos, his merchant's pride broken, hunts Lysandra's trail, his ledger forgotten, the village fractured by her rebellion, a wound that whispers through time. In 5th century BCE Greece, women like Lysandra paid a brutal price for daring to defy, but their courage weaves a legacy that echoes in our world, where freedom is a gift hard won. Would you face Lysandra's chains, or weave your own defiance? Drop a comment with your choice, and let's linger in this final breath, the scent of dust and mint wrapping your thoughts as the night deepens. Our journey through ancient Greece has been a descent into a world where women's lives were bound by clay walls and iron customs. We've walked with Lysandra through the Gymnasium's confines, her looms clack a rhythm of toil, her every step watched by Calliope's sharp eyes, as Xenophon's Economicus paints wives as household shadows. We've stood in her courtyard, feeling the weight of marriage and motherhood, Nikos' divorce thread a blade over her herb bartering, her love for Chloe a defiance against Solon's laws, per Athenian dowry contracts. We followed her to Broron, where priestesses like Eudoxia offered sanctuary but scrutiny, and hetairæ like Clio dangled freedom's gamble, as Plutarch's Life of Pericles shows women's wit in a man's world. We've dreamed with her of Sparta's hills, where women like Thera owned land, per Plutarch's Life of Lycurgus, yet serve a warrior state, their autonomy a mirage. And we've seen her village fracture, Calliope's guilt, Phaedra's remorse, Marine's speech a spark of change, as Sophocles' Antigone echoes their defiance through time. This wasn't a world of marble temples and heroic odes. For women, it was a brutal grind, where a veil, a word, or a herb could spark shame harsher than a Reddit mob's roar. Lysandra's story, though fictional, breathes life into thousands, women bound by Solon's guardianship, their worth tied to dowries and sons, per Demosthenes' speeches, yet daring small rebellions, as grave steely honor brave mothers. Her herb patch, a whisper of agency, cost her home, but its echo, Marine's speech, Phaedra's figurine, nudged Athens' norms, per Isaeus' cases of eased widows' rights. The village's scars, its empty agora, mirror Olynthus' abandoned homes, per archaeological finds, a testament to the toll of defiance, as economic papyri note trade slumps from scandal. Yet, Lysandra's courage, like Medea's fierce love, is a spark that burns through centuries, a legacy of resilience we carry today. Let's pause in the village one last time, where Phaedra's loom clacks, a faint echo of Lysandra's, the figurine a silent plea for her return. Calliope's hearth, cold, holds her tears, her gossip a wound she can't mend, as Thesmophoria Zeusi shows betrayers shunned. Nikos' hunt, a fading torch in the night, chases a ghost, Lysandra's Spartan dream, a defiance that haunts the agora, per Aristotle's Politics warning of women's boldness. Damon, his son, watches Marine, her words planting seeds in young hearts, as vase paintings show boys mimicking new roles. The village, fractured, is a mirror to our world, where gender battles rage, workplace bias, ex-shaming, silent chains, yet resilience shines, a thread from Lysandra's herbs to modern voices, per Mary Beard's Women and Power. Contrast this with our time, where freedom is a gift we hold lightly. Our homes glow with light, not oil lamps, our voices free to speak without Nikos' ledger or Calliope's whispers, as Beard studies celebrate women's amplified power. We trade herbs or ideas, on apps, not in secret, our worth not bound to dowries or sons, a privilege Lysandra could only dream, per Athenian legal texts valuing women as property. Our communities, digital or real, rally against shaming, from #MeToo to workplace reforms. A defiance Marine would cheer, as Emma Jane's research links ancient honor to modern mobs. Yet, the shadows linger, bias in boardrooms, hate on X, a gaze as sharp as Athens' agora, per Antigone's warning of unchecked power. Gratitude washes over us for our freedoms, but Lysandra's spark urges us to guard them, to weave defiance against modern chains. The legacy is dual, a warning and a tribute. Lysandra's village, gutted by mistrust, is a caution. Fear fractures, as Olynthes' empty storerooms show, per archaeological finds. But Lysandra's herbs, Myrene's speech, the votives at Eleusis, are a tribute, their resilience a fire that warms our world, as Bacche celebrates women's wild strength. Modern women, from activists to everyday voices, honor this, their defiance a chorus, per Beard's call to rewrite silenced histories. Kerameiko's memorials, etched with mothers' names, stand as altars to this strength, urging us to remember, to resist. The question lingers, heavy as the village's dust. Who's next to face the Agora's gaze, to weave defiance in our time? Drop a comment with your thoughts, and let our Night Owl community weave its spell. The answer is a thread tying us to Lysandra, her courage a lullaby for our dreams. As we close this journey, let's linger in the village's quiet, its stars a reminder of light in ruin. The Agora's whispers, Calliope's guilt, Phaedra's hope, Myrene's spark. They're a story of brutal chains, but also of hearts that defied, like Lysandra's herbs, her flight, her dream. Our world, with its screens and freedoms, is a gift, hard-won by those who face the loom, the well, the gaze, and refuse to break. So, as you drift asleep, let the scent of mint and clay fade, let the Agora's hum soften, and let Lysandra's strength lull you into dreams. The village is gone, but its lessons endure, a call to stand against fear, to honor the resilient, to weave a future where no one bows to silence. Let's carry that spark as we rest, our minds wrapped in the quiet of a night where defiance outshines the dark. The Athenian village slumbers under a velvet night, its cobblestone paths bathed in moonlight, the Agora's stalls long shuttered, a stillness that whispers of Lysandra's absence, her loom gone, her herb patch a memory, her defiance a spark that lit a fire across time. Somewhere beyond these clay walls, Lysandra's shadow moves, perhaps in Sparta's rugged hills, her children, Chloe and Damon, by her side, her heart fierce despite Nikos' hunt and Calliope's venomous gossip. Back in the village, Phaedra's loom clacks softly, her figurine for Lysandra a silent prayer, her guilt softened by Myrene's Agora speech, a defiance that echoes Lysandra's courage. Calliope, her hearth cold, molds clay alone, her tears a belated offering for the friend she betrayed. The legacy of 5th century BCE Greek women, like Lysandra, is a tapestry woven with brutal chains and stubborn sparks, its threads reaching our world, where battles for voice and freedom rage like a viral X thread with no mute button. What would you weave with Lysandra's courage today? Drop a comment with your spark, and let's linger in this final reflection, the scent of clay and starlight wrapping your thoughts as the night deepens. Lysandra's story, though a fiction spun from ancient truths, carries the weight of countless women bound by Athens' unforgiving code. Their lives, confined to the Gymnasium, measured by dowries and sons, were a brutal grind, as Xenophon's Economicus paints wives as household shadows, their voices silenced by Solon's laws. Yet, their defiance, Lysandra's herbs, Myrene's speech, the unnamed who left votives at Eleusis, rippled through time, a legacy of resilience that reshapes our understanding, per Mary Beard's Women and Power. Epigraphic records, like graves steely praising brave mothers, and archaeological finds, such as Kerameiko's memorials, testify to their quiet rebellions, their courage a whisper that outlasted marble temples. Lysandra's flight to Broron, her Spartan dream, mirrors Antigone's stand, a spark that fractured her village but seeded change, as Demosthenes' speeches note scandals nudging dowry reforms. This legacy is a mirror, reflecting ancient struggles in our modern shadows. The village's fracture, Calliope's guilt, Phaedra's remorse, Nikos' shame, is a cautionary tale, as Olynthes' abandoned homes show communities crumbling under mistrust, per archaeological finds. Today, we face our own agoras, boardrooms, X-threads, public squares, where women's voices, like Lysandra's herbs, are judged, shamed, or silenced, as Emma Jane studies on online misogyny link ancient honor codes to digital mobs. A woman's bold pitch dismissed as aggressive, a post sparking a hashtag storm. These are Calliope's whispers reborn, per Beard's parallels to Athens' scrutiny. Yet, resilience endures. Hashtag #MeToo, Time's Up, everyday acts of defiance echo Lysandra's spark, as Bacche celebrates women's wild power, their strength a thread from ancient clay to modern screens. Picture Lysandra's legacy in a modern scene, a pattern interrupt that binds past to present. A woman stands at a podium, her speech on equality drowned by hecklers, her X-feed ablaze with hate, a digital Nikos judging her boldness. She falters, then speaks louder, her voice a spark like Myrene's Agora stand, her allies, colleagues, followers, rising, a chorus akin to Phaedra's figurine, per Beard's call to amplify silenced voices. This woman, like Lysandra, faces the Agora's gaze, her defiance a gamble, as Medea shows love and rebellion intertwined. Studies of modern gender dynamics, like those by Deborah Tannen, mirror Athens' honor code. Women judged for speaking, yet persisting, their resilience a legacy etched in Kerameikos stones, where mothers' names endure. The enduring strength is a fire, kindled by ancient women's small acts. Lysandra's herbs, a bid for agency, cost her home, but inspired Myrene's speech, a shift in cultural memory, as graves steely honor bold women, per Isaeus cases of widows' rights. Votives at Eleusis, clay figurines for Demeter, show women's prayers for strength, their defiance a quiet rebellion, as Thesmophoria Zusi hints at women's rights challenging male control. Modern women carry this, activists, artists, mothers, who defy bias, from boardroom glass ceilings to ex-shaming, per Jane's research on digital resilience. The hashtag #MeToo movement, sparked by survivors, is Lysandra's herb patch reborn, a defiance that reshapes norms, as Beard's Women in Power urges rewriting history's silence, a legacy from Athens' clay to our screens. The modern shadows are stark, a call to see ancient chains in our world. Workplace bias, women earning 82 cents to a man's dollar, per global studies, echoes Lysandra's dowry, her worthland, not voice, per Athenian contracts. Ex-shaming, where a woman's post draws mobs, mirrors Calliope's well-side whispers, as Jane links digital hate to honor codes. Political silencing, women's voices drowned in debates, recalls Athens' Agora, where Myrene's speech was a shock, per Demosthenes' tales of shamed boldness. Yet, strength persists, women lead, speak, defy, their voices a chorus, as Antigone's stand outlasts Creon's wrath. Kerameikos memorials, etched with mothers' names, urge us to honor this, per Beard's call to amplify the past's silence sparks. A second pattern interrupt deepens the reflection. Imagine your life, where a bold choice, a post, a pitch, a stand, draws a mob's gaze, a modern Nikos or Calliope judging you. The shock lies in its familiarity. Lysandra's herbs, Myrene's speech. Your defiance faced the same scrutiny. A patriarchy as old as Solon's laws, per Tannen's studies on gendered speech. Yet, resilience shines. You persist, allies rise, a spark like Phaedra's figurine, as Bacchus celebrates women's untamed power. This bridge to today challenges us to see the Agora in our world. Workplaces, feeds, streets, but also the strength of those who, like Lysandra, weave defiance into survival, per Jane's call to resist digital shaming. The legacy is a dual thread, a warning and a tribute. Lysandra's village, fractured by fear, warns us, division destroys, as Olympus' empty homes show, per archaeological finds. But Lysandra's courage, Myrene's voice, the votives at Eleusis, are a tribute, their strength a fire that warms our world, as Beard urges us to rewrite history's silence. Modern women, from activists to you, honor this, their defiance a chorus, per Women in Power's call to amplify voices. The question lingers, soft as the village's dust. What spark will you weave to defy today's chains? Drop a comment with your defiance, and let our Night Owl community weave its spell. As you drift asleep, let the scent of herbs and starlight fade. Let Lysandra's courage lull you into dreams, a call to carry her spark into a world where defiance outshines the dark. The enduring strength is a fire, kindled by ancient women's small acts. Lysandra's herbs, a bid for agency, cost her home, but inspired Myrene's speech, a shift in cultural memory, as graves steely honor bold women, per Isaeus cases of widows' rights. Votives at Eleusis, clay figurines for Demeter, show women's prayers for strength, their defiance a quiet rebellion, as Thesmophoria Zusi hints at women's rights challenging male control. Modern women carry this, activists, artists, mothers, who defy bias, from boardroom glass ceilings to ex-shaming, per Jane's research on digital resilience. The hashtag #MeToo movement, sparked by survivors, is Lysandra's herb patch reborn, a defiance that reshapes norms, as Beard's Women in Power urges rewriting history's silence, a legacy from Athens' clay to our screens. The modern shadows are stark, a call to see ancient chains in our world. Workplace bias, women earning 82 cents to a man's dollar, per global studies, echoes Lysandra's dowry, her worthland, not voice, per Athenian contracts. Ex-shaming, where a woman's post draws mobs, mirrors Calliope's well-side whispers, as Jane links digital hate to honor codes. Political silencing, women's voices drowned in debates, recalls Athens' Agora, where Marine's speech was a shock, per Demosthenes' tales of shamed boldness. Yet, strength persists, women lead, speak, defy, their voices a chorus, as Antigone's stand outlasts Creon's wrath. Kerameiko's memorials, etched with mothers' names, urge us to honor this, per Beard's call to amplify the past's silence sparks. A second pattern interrupt deepens the reflection. Imagine your life, where a bold choice, a post, a pitch, a stand, draws a mob's gaze, a modern Nikos or Calliope judging you. The shock lies in its familiarity. Lysandra's Herbs, Marine's speech. Your defiance faced the same scrutiny. A patriarchy as old as Solon's laws, per Tanin's studies on gendered speech. Yet, resilience shines. You persist, allies rise, a spark like Phaedra's figurine, as Bacchae celebrates women's untamed power. This bridge to today challenges us to see the agora in our world. Workplaces, feeds, streets, but also the strength of those who, like Lysandra, weave defiance into survival, per Jane's call to resist digital shaming. The legacy is a dual thread, a warning and a tribute. Lysandra's village, fractured by fear, warns us, division destroys, as Olynthes' empty homes show, per archaeological finds. But Lysandra's courage, Marine's voice, the votives at Eleusis, are a tribute, their strength a fire that warms our world, as Beard urges us to rewrite history's silence. Modern women, from activists to you, honor this, their defiance a chorus, per women and power's call to amplify voices. The question lingers, soft as the village's dust. What spark will you weave to defy today's chains? Drop a comment with your defiance, and let our night owl community weave its spell. As you drift asleep, let the scent of herbs and starlight fade. Let Lysandra's courage lull you into dreams, a call to carry her spark into a world where defiance outshines the dark.